This video will be concerned with the planning process for innovation. It's part 4 of a 4-part series, essentially based around the work of Kumar, who set forth a model for the analysis of innovation planning. We've focused in on this because it raises lots of issues about how to go about planning for innovation. If we stand back from the concept for a second and think about it, it does seem like a contradiction to some extent. Planning for innovation. Innovation seems a much more spontaneous thing to happen. Spontaneous in the sense that we see a situation and we think we can improve upon it. In that sense, it arises in our minds. We think about a situation, we think about an improvement. If the improvement is successful, we'd say we have successfully innovated. So we don't really plan for it in that sense. What we do instead is recognize that we have an idea and we move the idea from the mind. We make it real. We put it into operation. We move it from our heads into operation. So it's much more a psychological process. So planning for it seems incongruous. It seems a little strange. But having said that, having looked at the work of Kumar, we can see there are frameworks, there are stages we go through. First of all, in recognizing the innovation, but then the process of stepping through it in the organization and bringing the innovation into existence. So the concept is where we start, and the reality or the actuality at the end, the final product, is where we're going. And within the organization, there are various steps. And that's what Kumar was focusing on. And that's why the article is important for us. So now we've got to the final stage. We have dealt with 3 of them. Let's step through this. We can start by thinking about making plans, or the planning stage. And planning involves the various steps we've got here on the right, the 5 steps. The strategic roadmap, innovation brief, strategic plan, tactical plan, and business case. What we're doing here is we are moving from an idea through to the product, whatever the product is, and now we're trying to work out how to deal with the product commercially, how to enable this product to survive in the commercial setting, in a commercial manner. And to do that, of course, we need to step through looking at the strategic roadmap, see what the competitors are doing, see what the environment is, see what consumers want. Looking at the brief itself, is it a very expensive product to make vis-a-vis the returns? Do we anticipate significant profitability from the product, or is it just something we're doing just to hope that there is a market, which is not a good idea. We have the strategic plan itself, how we fit the product into the product line of the business, and also look at what the competitors are doing, what the customers are saying, and see where it fits. We have the tactical plan about how to outmaneuver the competitors, how to launch the product, how to bring the product into existence and position it properly in the market. And look at the overall business case. Is this going to be a profitable exercise? Is it worth doing? So let's step through these fairly quickly. We'll start with the making plans stage. Well, making plans are looking at the way the organization sets about devising a framework for the launch of this product. Well, this mode involves setting up action plans to make the innovation a reality. Action plans means doing. What's going to be done to make this a reality? What adjustments within the organization, perhaps in terms of production or layout or personnel, how is it going to be configured within the organization? How is the organization going to launch this and make it? And of course, the plans must be in agreement with research findings based on the intent. The intention was to make the product we talked about in a previous video. Now we have to see what research findings, what analysis comes back from the market to see if it is a good idea. Perhaps looking at focus groups and the feedback from focus groups, or feedback from the marketing department who may have talked about it, or taken soundings from the market to see if the idea is in fact a good idea and worth carrying forward. So the plans must be in agreement with those. There's no point in carrying on if the feedback is not very positive, if customers are not very enthusiastic. If they're not, it sounds like a struggle to make this commercial. If, on the other hand, the feedback was very enthusiastic, then of course it's worthwhile continuing. Plans are devised which identify the value of the innovation for customers and the company. And really that's the crux of the matter. The plans must recognize what customers think about the product. The plans must identify the customer's wants, needs in this context, and the extent to which the product addresses those wants and needs. The plans must show how the concept or innovation provides strategic advantage. It must give the organization some sort of strategic advantage over its competitors. The product must have, or should have, some uniqueness. And ideally, that uniqueness should be protected by copyright or by patents, as some people say. It should be protected. It should be capable of protection, ideally. But it's moving from thinking to doing. But it's also trying to look at the advantages of this new proposal over what the competitors are currently doing in the market. So it should have some advantage, and that's important. Now, making plans. Well, strategic plans are devised to outline the innovation and the necessary steps involved in bringing the innovation concept to reality. So it's necessary, with the appropriate management and the appropriate people involved within the organization, to come up with a plan that will enable the innovation to become a reality, to move it from the idea stage to actuality. And we've dealt with this in a previous video, but essentially moving it from there to there. That's the initial stage. What resources are required, what expertise, what personnel, what equipment, what marketing, and so on and so on. So looking at a detailed plan, looking at the resources that have to be committed to bring this into existence. Plans must be robust and can clearly demonstrate to stakeholders the intentions for innovation and its impact on the business. Ideally, the plans should be thought about in a great deal of detail and criticized internally and moved around between various members of the development team for criticism, analysis, what if exercises, what if something goes wrong, what if this doesn't happen, what if we meet this problem and we didn't anticipate it before now, and now we know about it, how damaging is it, and so on. In other words, the idea has to be kicked around between the relevant people involved within the organisation. And that's so as to make the plan robust, to make it sturdy, to make it strong. And when it gets to that stage, then it could be taken to the wider stakeholders, perhaps the shareholders of the business or the senior management or interested parties, so that they can look at the plan. And now the criticisms that they would have made have been addressed before it got that far. So it seems like the plan has been well thought out. And that's important. The plan must outline the resources required, the costs, the time frames, a business case for the new offering and its implementation procedures. This is a new offering. This is a new product in the market. It's a new way of doing things. It's a new production process. It's a new product, as I said earlier. It's something new. So it's a new offering. And as such, it is a change from what was there before. And therefore, there will be new costs, new time frames, new implications, perhaps new skilled personnel with particular skills that hitherto were not required. So now the planning has taken root. Now there is a detailed list of the resources required, and associated with those resources are the costs and also the time frames. How long will each resource be required and what will they carry out? So the plan must have some sort of outline in terms of costs, frameworks and implications for the organisation. And indeed, going back to what we said earlier and at the top of this slide as well, looking at the strategic plans, how does it all fit together? So it's quite a detailed document, not just coming up with a good idea for an innovation, but now to make the business case, it requires a lot more thought and a lot more precision and also documentation. You could argue, of course, that all of this is bureaucratic and it may kill the innovative spirit of individuals who think it's not worthwhile doing anymore because it's so cumbersome. That may be the case, but in order to make a business case and to root out the frivolous innovations that may be proposed, in order to eliminate those, this is the procedure that is required. It's not just coming up with a good idea, because that so-called good idea might be just an idea. It may not be good. To make it good, it has to meet the costs, the time frames, the personnel, the market, the strategy. It has to look at all of those different aspects. And if it holds up against each of those, then we can put a tick mark and say it is a good innovation. So, make plans. Well, in this context, the following tools can be used for this, or can help with this one. Innovation business case, the tools and processes to plan the concept into a business plan. And in a previous video on this, we talked about the type of software and the type of tools, ranging from very simple, straightforward ones like spreadsheets to detailed planning packages that may help. But essentially, it's ensuring that the business case is robust, as I said on the previous slide. And it's ensuring that the plan goes from an idea, a concept, right through to the final market, and that there is a strong case that that plan will generate profits and will be to the benefit of the business and the employees within the business. It must have a strategic roadmap, the tool which enables milestone planning of different phases in the concept development. It depends on how elaborate the proposal is. If it's a sophisticated proposal, big proposal, then a roadmap may be set up with various stages. It may have the equivalent of a Gantt chart, where at certain dates certain activities should be complete. If they are, it moves to the next stage until it's completed, and so on until it's completed. The strategic roadmap also watches the market to see what the market is doing during the whole process of development. It may be that the market is moving very fast and the competitors who are not standing still, competitors are coming up with ideas also, and perhaps bringing their ideas to market before this particular one, in which case the strategic roadmap, the one we're considering, should indicate that and perhaps cause a reorientation of the planning, a rethink of the planning. The strategic plan, it's a method for identifying innovation strategy based on explored concepts. Well, the dot means in this case that we're dealing here with explored concepts, which means we have looked at different concepts in detail, but sometimes some may fall through the cracks. We may not be comprehensive in looking at it. So it's trying to ensure that every aspect is considered and trying to make sure that the concept is robust, it can be done, it's feasible, but it is also profitable. And that all of the various tick marks that we've just discussed in terms of commercial viability, profitability, development, the roadmaps, everything, all of that fits together smoothly to enable the business to bring the concept to market. So it's looking at all of the concepts that have been looked at, have been explored, and ensuring that they can be carried forward. Now, realized offerings. This is the outcomes, really. Here we're looking at behavioral, prototype, concept prototype, pilot and launch, and change plan. So realized offerings, this is the outcome of all of the planning, the thought, and so on, trying to now say, yes, we'll go forward with this proposed innovation. Whatever the innovation is, an improvement in production, or an improvement to the product, or simply a different way of marketing the product, which is an innovation, a different strategy for recruitment and training, whatever it is, whatever the innovation proposal is, we've now got to the stage where it's gone through the robust exercise we've set out earlier, and now we're looking at the realized offerings, in other words, the outcomes. So the realized offerings, well, this mode is focused on developing the concept through prototypes and iteration routines. Prototyping means trying to model it. If it's a product, make the product, and then use the product, this made product, maybe just a one-off, but take it to market, set up focus groups, ask customers, what do they think of it? Do they like the design, the color, the texture, its functionality? What do they like? What do they not like? Make notes and be very humble about it. There's no point in forcing the customers to say what you want them to hear. Just listen to see what they do say, because they are the ones at the end who will buy it or not buy it. So prototyping is a very strong tool to use. It could be used internally as well. Sometimes when people innovate a process, let's say in production or in an office routine, they might run the new one alongside the existing one for a period of time, trial test it to see if it holds up. See what issues does it throw up. Sometimes we have unexpected consequences. And the unexpected consequence could be catastrophic. But we don't know that until we've run it, until we see it working. And when it's put under stress, perhaps it might break. And that was not anticipated beforehand. So it's important to prototype, whether it's a service or a physical product or a different way of producing something, a machine, whatever it is. It's important to look at the outcome and test the outcomes with prototypes or with routines, iteration routines. Test it over and over and over. Test it until it breaks to see how far it goes before it breaks. Test to destruction. It gives us information, and we can feed the information back into the organization to its decision-making level, who will then decide whether it's worthwhile carrying forward or not. The product success can only be visible when innovation is being used by the target customer base. That is ultimately the case. It's the customers who will really decide whether a product is a good idea or not. It's the customers who buy it or don't buy it. If they think it's a good idea, they will buy it. If they think it's not such a good idea, they won't. So trying to work out in advance what the customers think is difficult. It may be making the product and giving it away as a free sample to see what they think and asking them to feed back their comments and leaving it with them for a long time. The danger with that, of course, is that it's then in the public domain. Competitors can see it and think that's what the company's up to, that's what they're making. We can make essentially the same but add an extra function to it, and we will outcompete them. So there is a danger of giving away the idea. So there is a tension in trying to get information about what is acceptable in the market. Prototypes are excellent ways to observe the innovation in use and the customer's behavior. This information helps innovators make an informed decision regarding the innovation's potential. And as I said, it is a good idea because the customers can see it and you can get their reaction straight away. They can feed back sometimes very quickly. They don't like the color, they don't like the shape, they don't like something about it. Why is this there and why doesn't it do that? And if only it did that, it would be a good idea. On these sort of suggestions and comments are very valuable. But as I said also, of course, the danger is you're releasing the idea into the community where competitors may pick up on it and then rush to market something based on what they see as a better product. So there is a danger, but prototyping is a very important tool. Now, realized offerings. Well, prototypes help innovators identify any problems. It allows them to make corrective adjustments to the innovations, and it enables them to launch the innovations successfully. So prototypes, very, very useful, very, very interesting way of picking up information. Customers don't normally make decisions based on pictures on a piece of paper or a PowerPoint presentation or a website. They prefer, particularly if it's an expensive item, they prefer to see it working. They prefer to look at it and judge for themselves as they see it. It's a very primitive response we have to to things in many respects. We like to see the thing, we like to touch it and walk around it and think about it and perhaps leave it for a while and go back and think about it again. But with prototypes, it's almost possible. They can see the product, they can think about it, they can make their comments, and the organization can respond to that and tell them, okay, we won't put this on the market, but if you come back in 3 months, we'll have a product that perhaps meets your requirements. Particularly, we're in the process of bringing out one right now that will meet your requirements. So it may be the case that prototypes are a good way, certainly, of bringing forward a physical product. If it's a service, it's a bit more obscure, but can be done as well. We can illustrate the type of service and the benefits of that service. After a few iterations, after a few times to see the prototype developing, changing. So after a few iterations, the product is then evaluated in real situations. The process for iterations and making modifications to the innovations ensure that the final launch will be successful. So early prototyping might happen within the organization. So it may be kept very secretive, but within the organization, they work out a prototype. They ask members of the organization to evaluate it and criticize it, and they have meetings set aside for, first of all, quite senior staff, then middle staff, and then everybody in the organization might have a look at it, and if it goes through without too much criticism, too much comment, they might think that's sufficient to then put an early version onto the market to see what customers think about it. The whole exercise, of course, is extremely expensive, as you can imagine. The following tools can be used in this mode. Behavioral prototyping. It's cheaper and convenient prototyping, developed to test functionality and changes, and the changes are made accordingly. Behavioral it's looking at the reactions of customers to proposals. It's looking at their view of it, their thoughts about it. Sometimes customers evaluate products based on current fashions and trends. Sometimes they want particular style changes or particular functionality. We live in a period right now where the internet is pervasive. We get the internet everywhere. And there was recently a campaign by a well-known company advertising a refrigerator with internet capability. The internet the refrigerator, I should say, had a camera on the inside, so when people are shopping, they could see inside their own fridge to see what they needed to buy. But when in the kitchen, the refrigerator could play music, or it could give recipes. Whether that is necessary or not, or whether customers respond to that or not, it's difficult to say. Sometimes the desire to have a new product can push companies in unusual ways. A bit like building a refrigerator with an internet capability. Now, that may become popular. At this moment in time, it's more of a concept, looking at to see if two parts of the current behavioral patterns of customers can be joined up. Customers need or want refrigerators, but they also want the internet. Whether the two should be put together is difficult to say. Pilot and launch the plan. Processes and tools used for iterations and launch. Having got through the various stages of looking at prototyping and development and moving from the concept and all of the material we've looked at in the past videos. Having moved through that, we get to the stage of piloting the work, making it or doing it. If it's a change to the organization, do it. That's the innovation. The departments within the company will be organized differently. That's the innovation. And then pilot it, try it out. It might be tried out on a small scale to start. And if it's worked, gradually the other one is phased into it so that the pilot becomes the main system. But there must be a launch date. There must be a date fixed when this is going to happen. It can't be left to happen sometime in the future. There must be a date. Otherwise there'll be no discipline about the development. If the management say it will happen sometime in the future, then there's no urgency on anybody's part. It's sometime in the future. But if they say it'll happen on the 2nd of August this year, then there is an urgency. And as that date approaches, there'll be more of an urgency to ensure that whatever was required has been done. And there will be a planning phase set up with that end date in mind. So there must be some sort of launch plan, and there must be some sort of pilot to see if it's going to work. And also a change plan. Tools used to make organizational changes based on new innovations. If it's a physical product, a change to a physical product, that is the innovation. That's the newness. If that is the case, then the organization may have to change to accommodate that. So there will have to be a change plan within the organization as well. Perhaps production systems might have to change, or personnel might have to be updated in their skills or in new skills. So there's another planning phase that runs along not just development of the innovation itself, but now running along the change that's required within the organization to accommodate the innovation. And there should be some planning for that. The change could be, as I said, updating skills, new factory layout, new office layouts, new marketing plans, new techniques for marketing. It puts everything in the air to some extent, because this is a new product, a new way of doing things, a new way of producing. Whatever it is, it's new, and therefore will require appropriate changes to take place. Now, foster uptake. Well, this mode concerns the implementation of the innovation. There is a shift from planning innovation to implementation of innovation. So finally, having gone through all of the planning process, looking at all the different plans that are required, prototyping, change, updating skills, all of that, having gone through all of that, the next phase is implementation, doing it. And of course, we only get to this stage once the management have confidence that this proposed newness, this proposed innovation is a good idea. If they see it as a good idea, we get to this stage. We get to shifting from the planning to implementation. And this means there is a commitment to change. Tools are used in this mode to ensure the continuous success of an innovation throughout its life cycle. So the tools that are going to be used here they may be borrowed from previous tools, from previous ways of working. They may be borrowed from there, but may be amended because now there's a newness. perhaps a new machine has been bought in, or the office structure or layout is different, or the routines in the office is different. Perhaps new technology has been introduced in the office, a new server, new software, whatever it is. So there may be retraining required. There may be updating of skills. New personnel may be required with totally new skills. All of this is to ensure that the innovation has a good chance of success throughout its life cycle, for however how long it's going to last. The innovation success and growth must be continually evaluated to ensure the innovation provides competitive advantage. That's probably our last comment on this topic of planning, but it's probably one of the most important. It's important, once an innovation has been put in place, to monitor it continuously to ensure that it's generating competitive advantage. If it's not, then it was a bad idea. Why innovate if it's going to make you worse off? You only innovate if you are better off as a consequence. So we don't follow bad innovations, we follow good innovations. And it's important here that the management in business, looking at internal processes, or looking at the product, or looking at the market, or whatever they're looking at in the context of this proposed innovation, they must have confidence that this is going to generate competitive advantage for them in the market, and it's going to enable them to have a more secure future, a better future, more profitability, and it leaves the competitors following them, so they become the market leaders. And that's the whole idea of coming up with the innovation in the first place. Innovations are not for innovation's sake. They are to satisfy a need on the part of the organization, a need on the part of the consumers, a need on the part of the operators, the workforce, the personnel. But the organization adopts it to be better off and to make the whole situation, from the market to the internal runnings of the business, make it all better off, because there will be more resources flowing in, because they have competitive advantage. That completes our talk on innovation planning. There are some more videos on the topic, as you'd expect. There are lots of videos on lots of topics on Galton College, but there are some more videos on innovation planning, but they are more standalone videos, which we also recommend that you have a look at. But that's all we're going to deal with in this one. So let's remind ourselves of the source. It's all based on the work of Kumar. Excellent piece of work. It's important to try and look up Kumar's article if you can, and see what has been said about it. It gives us a very good insight into innovation planning. So excellent article. That's all we're going to deal with. So let's leave it at that and say thank you for watching.